Tonight, the Trump base gets another scalp, the last Rohingya fighters, and the aftermath of California's methane disaster.
I am moving because there is a gas leak.
The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled late today that an undocumented 17-year-old in federal custody can have an abortion, despite the objections of the Trump administration. In a highly unusual move, the panel of 9 judges made the decision without hearing oral arguments, and without even revealing they had agreed to hear the case. The 6-3 vote effectively allows the teen to file new paperwork to get the procedure. Identified in court as Jane Doe, she's being held in a shelter in Brownsville, Texas, and the Department of Health and Human Services has been actively blocking her attempts to end the pregnancy for nearly 4 weeks. She's now 15 and a half weeks pregnant, and Texas law forbids abortions after 20 weeks. After a unanimous vote, China's Communist Party wrote President Xi Jinping's name and ideas into its constitution, elevating him to the same status as Mao Zedong, the leader of China's Communist Revolution. The change tightens Xi's grip on the country even further, and it gives him a stronger mandate to pursue his priorities, like expanding the military and strengthening China's influence on the world stage. A member of British Parliament wants to know if Russians used Facebook to influence the 2016 Brexit referendum and this year's general election. The MP, who leads a committee that's investigating fake news, released a letter today that was addressed to Mark Zuckerberg on October 19th. It asks for information about ads purchased by Russia-linked accounts and likens the request to what the company has already handed over to the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee. A Facebook spokeswoman told Bloomberg that the company is reviewing the request. 2 women accused of killing North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's half-brother were brought today to the scene of the alleged attack at a Malaysian airport. Police pushed the women in wheelchairs at one point during the 3-hour visit. It was part of their ongoing murder trial and meant to paint a picture for the court of the February incident, when prosecutors say the suspect smeared Kim Jong-nam's face with a toxic nerve agent. The women, who are from Indonesia and Vietnam, have pleaded not guilty and said they thought they were participating in a prank TV show. Tuesday began the way a lot of days do in the Trump era, with a food fight between President Trump and his critics. Senator Bob Corker brushed off the White House on CNN.
The president has great difficulty with the truth.
And Trump spent the next hour and a half shredding Corker on Twitter, calling him a laughingstock, and short, and a lightweight, and a coward. But as the day went on, things got a lot more serious.
At 3 o'clock this afternoon, Senator Jeff Flake, a strong Republican anti-Trump voice, announced he won't be running for re-election. And he did it in a way that got the resist crowd really, really excited by bashing Trump hard.
Reckless, outrageous, and undignified behavior has become excused and countenanced as telling it like it is, when it is actually just reckless, outrageous, and undignified. And when such behavior emanates from the top of our government, it is something else. It is dangerous to a democracy. I am announcing today that my service in the Senate will conclude at the end of my term in early January 2019.
And with that, Flake joins Bob Corker and his fellow Arizonan John McCain in a small but growing cadre of senators who now feel free to speak truth to President Trump without political consequence. And no one is happier about that than Donald Trump. To a certain kind of liberal idealist, Jeff Flake's retiring is the ultimate Obi-Wan move. You know, strike me down and I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. But that's not what's happening.
If I could run the kind of race I'd like to run and believe I could win a Republican primary, I might go forward. But it's there's a very narrow path now as a Republican. I'm a traditional Republican.
Steve Bannon and Trump's base have been trying to deny Flake another Senate term for months now. And today, they did it. They already pushed Corker out in Tennessee. And they wanted Luther Strange out of the Alabama Senate race, and 4 weeks ago, they got that too. Bannon has set his sights on Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and among a certain kind of Republican, made his name as toxic as Nancy Pelosi's. Look, there are real consequences of this kind of political arson. McConnell still controls what the Senate does, and Flake and Corker still have more than a year in their seats to make life really hard for Trump's agenda in the Senate. Oh, and by the way, Democrats may actually have a shot at picking up Jeff Flake's seat now that he's no longer running for it. So a traditional political strategist would not be advising pushing guys like this out. But Bannon and Trump are not traditional political strategists. They don't care about the long-term picture. All they care about is loyalty to the cause, the kind of short-term win that makes a strong political point. And today, they got a big one.
Yesterday, the State Department said it may cut off aid to the government of Myanmar and target individuals associated with recent atrocities against the country's Rohingya Muslim minority. That slaughter was Myanmar's ruthless response to an uprising by the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, or ARSA. The Rohingya are heavily persecuted in the Buddhist majority nation, and after decades of marginalization, conditions were ripe for an armed resistance like ARSA to rise. Myanmar's government forbids access to Rakhine State, where the group operates, making it difficult to get information about the insurgents. But now, members of ARSA who've been driven to refugee camps in Bangladesh are revealing who they are and what they're fighting for.
सिर्फ आरा दास माने की ऐतो बसरोती आरा रे मार्द दर्द दिया नल्ला बोली आरा आरखोनी में क्या खारी बार जागना दिया नल्ला बोली रे आरा तो दास माने की इंदिला मुम्मी क्या उज़ा वजह दे सिर्फ.
The insurgency gained attention after their first attack last October, which killed 9 border guards and provoked a brutal backlash from Myanmar's powerful military. In the months that followed, hundreds more Rohingya joined the insurgency. Early on August 25th, they struck again, hitting 30 police stations and an army base, this time leaving 12 officers dead. These attacks were met with even greater force, a bloody military campaign against Rohingya villages that sparked the current refugee exodus.
यार बराबर दास फारम मजार के सुमानस तागिल गदिया न मजे 40 जन मानुष दास गगर बुतरो फुरा दिवलाई आरा फारम मजे.
ARSA is led by Ataullah, a Rohingya expat born in Pakistan and raised in Saudi Arabia. Analysts say its funding and weapons come from Bangladesh and the Persian Gulf, and that ARSA fighters are trained by commanders who fought in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
The government declared the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army as a terrorist group.
Under international scrutiny for its treatment of the Rohingya, Myanmar's government justified its actions by designating ARSA a terrorist group, a charge ARSA leaders deny. ARSA has drawn attention from Islamic militants. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and groups from Chechnya have all expressed support for the group. And some security experts think the Rohingyas' turn towards violence could destabilize the region by attracting foreign fighters. But the members we spoke to describe a force of much more limited capabilities. Now, with its members scattered, the insurgency faces an uncertain future. years ago this week, workers at the Aliso Canyon gas storage facility in Los Angeles reported that a well had ruptured. By the time the facility's owner, SoCalGas, finally succeeded in plugging it, the well had released 100,000 metric tons of methane and other toxic chemicals. It was the worst gas blowout in U.S. history. Public health agencies ordered SoCalGas to relocate 8,000 people after hundreds complained of symptoms including nausea, dizziness, and bloody noses. But once they returned home for good, many residents continued to fall ill. Even though the cause of the rupture remains unknown, state regulators declared the site safe and allowed the facility to reopen this past July, amid protests from the community and elected officials. Experts continue to disagree about an important point: how likely it is that there's a link between long-term health problems and the blowout. But for local residents, the connection seems clear.
So we're passing the entryway to one of the neighborhoods where I know several people have been very, very ill. It's kind of an upscale San Fernando Valley neighborhood. We represent about 8,535 people impacted by the blowout. We have multiple people with similar cancers, and we're trying to understand why. Despite the fact that this was probably the largest natural gas blowout in history, there is no public agency leading the charge in doing a health study. We're against one of the largest industries that controls pretty much the planet, oil and gas. And what that means is, how do we figure out how to slay the giant with a pebble? We are going to see one of my clients. Aaliyah has a rare form of cancer, a leukemia called AML. We are concerned that Aaliyah's cancer could be related to the blowout exposures and the chemicals.
I am moving because there is a gas leak. I'm going to take the stickers with me to my new house.
She's in remission. We feel thankful, but we realize there's a possible link with her specific type of cancer to some of the toxins we were exposed to, and we decided we couldn't stay. It was a hard decision because this was our dream house. She has a 40% chance to relapse, and if she relapses here, I'm always gonna feel like it's because we brought her back here.
You do. It's important to realize that these types of exposures of communities living close to these industrial operations pose hazards and risks that really are not very well understood. I do think that people will experience health symptoms in the future, whether or not they're actually related to the well exposure or not, probably can never be conclusively proven. But without a study that really looks at this, then those answers will be very unanswerable.
After a lengthy legal battle, SoCalGas agreed to fund a $1 million health study on the effects of the blowout. That study hasn't started yet. A panel of experts and county officials estimate that conducting a comprehensive study would actually require up to $40 million.
If we had a list of chemicals that we knew of that were being blown into the air and then rained on people's houses, we wouldn't have to go back and play forensics. The people continually ask me, can we test for toxins? So I finally implemented the toxin testing components.
At the time of the blowout, Dr. Nordella was a family practitioner at an urgent care clinic in Porter Ranch. He initiated his own survey to understand the health effects of the blowout.
So I hope the study will just be revealing enough for then the proper agency to pick up the ball and run with it and do the appropriate study.
And having reviewed Dr. Nordella's work, I'm left with far too many questions, deeply concerning questions.
This is significant. The one thing that stood out on everybody was this chemical. We'll just call it PGO.
Dr. Nordella's results from 106 patients showed significantly elevated levels of a byproduct of ethylbenzene and styrene, chemicals linked to causing cancer. These levels were on average twice as high as what's usually seen in California.
My opinion, Otherwise, it's scientifically irresponsible to ignore the facts and allow the continued operation of Aliso Canyon gas storage facility.
I am very impatient that it's taking so long for this health study to get done, because many people with strong health problems are making connections of those health problems with the threats at Aliso Canyon, and until the health study is completed, we really can't answer those questions.
SoCalGas did not reply to multiple requests for an interview, but emailed stating that officials say there is no long-term risk to public health or safety from the gas leak. State and local regulators have said that they don't believe there are long-term health effects, but they also state that a more comprehensive study is needed.
I'm scared, frankly. I think the case for shutting this thing down is more compelling than ever.
The effects of this is so staggering, there are no words.
Today, Democratic Senator Ron Wyden and Republican Senator Rand Paul introduced a bill to rein in one of the most expansive surveillance tools in American spycraft. Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, enables the National Security Agency to eavesdrop on conversations between foreign nationals. But it also lets them tap into conversations with Americans without a warrant. Section 702 is set to expire on December 31st, and will almost certainly be reapproved, meaning Paul and Wyden have only 68 days to protect U.S. citizens from mass surveillance.
Last month, the NSA said it's currently using this law to surveil more than 100,000 foreigners. It does this by plugging into the infrastructure of the internet operated by companies like AT&T and searching through large swaths of data. It also requires the big internet companies like Apple, Google, and Facebook to turn over data on foreign targets the NSA has identified. But privacy hawks like Senator Ron Wyden say Section 702 can be used to spy on Americans inside the country, creating a kind of backdoor to the Fourth Amendment's protections against unlawful searches. This happens in two ways. First, by essentially using a foreign target as an excuse to spy on the American they communicate with. And second, to sweep up any American who even mentions a foreign target. So if you email your best friend in Germany, the NSA could target them to collect your messages. Or if you email your other best friend in America and simply mention your friend in Germany, the same rule applies.
What we're concerned about is somebody just being mentioned. It's really called a bouts collection because somebody just is referred to. It is a very serious privacy invasion.
Whatever the NSA gets from your communications can be given to agencies like the FBI without a warrant. And it's impossible to know how much data the NSA has collected on American citizens because the agency won't reveal how often they've used it to do so. This practice of employing 702 to collect data, then using it to prosecute individuals without due process is exactly what Wyden's proposal hopes to stop.
If we don't write it into the law, if we don't embed it into the law, at the first opportunity, this administration will unravel it.
The Trump administration is likely to oppose the Wyden bill, but it is pushing for one small change while the window's still open, and that's to enact 702 permanently, removing the built-in requirement that Congress reauthorize the law every 4 years. This means that the next time we find out more information about the government's data collection programs, or the next time there's an informant or a leak, it would be that much harder for Congress to make changes to the law.
That was fun.
Now I forgot where I was.
Whoa, that sounded cool.
Is that Nickelback?
How are you picking these songs?
I wanna change your life. I just wanna change your mood. Make you need to change your clothes.
That's cool.
Cool production.
Futuristic R&B. It gives the illusion of slowing down, but it's actually just the same tempo.
I wonder if it's the same singer did a bunch of vocal takes and stacked it up, processed it, or if it's some old sample.
Sometimes when I hear this R&B sound, it's not my thing, but this was a lot less of that woey, woey, woey kind of thing. just sonically neat.
It's division.
Watch out for that.
Interesting rhythm track. I mean, it has elements of like this organic, acoustic-y kind of thing, but then it's like all kinds of electronic, loopy type stuff.
Yeah, I was ready for the like natural drums where the percussive element came in. I thought it was going to be more cliched, and it surprised me with the sound it used.
Almost like a less commercial Coldplay.
The only thing is I can't remember one word that was said.
20-something, buying coffee you can't afford, thinking love is keeping score. You're sleeping on a couch.
I think it sounds like that Selena Gomez song with Kygo.
I was listening to the lyrics on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, it seemed very crafted in the lyrical sense. Every line had to make you think back, and that's an interesting thing. Sometimes, though, you don't want to think that much. I don't know, I'm from Tennessee, and I'm not as enthralled by Southern accents as people seem to be. It's not as offensive as a lot of modern country.
It's cool.
That's good. I must be from England.
Reminds me of The Cure a little bit.
Well, yeah, awesome guitar stuff.
Actually, I think our next record's going to sound like that.
It's great. Who is it? Because I got to get that.
McTaverskin.
I'm going to have to see that written out and write it down. I'm nervous to see this. Are you?
No.
Okay, good.
That's Vice News Tonight for Tuesday, October 24th.